You may have realized that being healthy feels different than it did in the past now that you're over 50. If you want to maximize your health potential but don't have time to read through overwhelming pages of Google links, this is the show for you. Welcome to Healthy Tips After 50. We love doing the research, finding solutions, talking to health experts, and learning what works and what doesn't. Now, your host. She spent the last 25 years dedicated to feeling her best and is here to share her best findings with you, Susan Rosen.
Hello, everyone. It's your host, Susan, and I have, as usual, another very interesting guest who's here to spend some time with us. And his name is Michael Dorfman. He has a really interesting background. He actually was born in Brooklyn, and now he lives in Mexico. So I will let Michael explain how he ended up from one to the other and what he is doing right now to talk about health. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Susan, and it's really a pleasure to be on this podcast. I was looking forward to it for a while now, and
thank you.
Here's my opportunity.
Yeah.
So I was born in 1942 in Brooklyn, New York, and I was checking last week, and I just noticed that I was born 1 month after the invasion. The Japanese invaded Pearl Harbor. Oh, so wow. I go back a bit. Actually, this year I celebrated in January my 80th birthday.
Oh, congratulations!
So, yeah. So I just was thinking back just a little bit. I was at that time, during the 40s and the early 50s. We, most of the kids, we just played outside. We had so much fun because we didn't even have our first television until 1952. So I was about 10 years old, and then it was like 2 or 3 programs. But most of the entertainment we had was on radio. But I played football. I was a big boy then, even though I wasn't tall. I played high school football, and I had actually 4 scholarships to play it in college level. But I was too small for that. So when I took one of the scholarships. Actually, it was the University of Bridgeport. But once I saw the size of these guys, I quit the team. I quit the team. But yeah. I was born into a family of butchers. My father was a butcher. My brother was a butcher, and I had 2 uncles that were butchers and a cousin was a butcher. So we had meat and dairy at least once a day, and we would have all kinds of meat. We had, all kinds of organs. We had the spleen and the pancreas and the lungs and even the belly button, and we even ate brains. My mother
liked brains. Yeah.
Oh, really? So my mother would, make brain salad every once in a while, and so that's the way it was. But at that time, you grow up and you don't really, question what your mom puts on your table, so you just eat it. And fortunately, I grew up, pretty healthy, and we didn't have very many processed foods at that time. Processed foods came in later time. But I went to college. I went to the university. I went to Brooklyn, and then I did 2 years postgraduate at the Queens College in psychology.
Wow.
And I was about to begin working. But it was that during that summer, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna make a trip to Mexico, and I got on. I came down to Mexico in a motorcycle from New York. I went up through Canada and came down through I think it was Toronto and all the way down to Mexico. So I came down and I met my wife, who was my Mexican, and everything changed in my life.
Yeah, I would say.
Absolutely. And we ended up, we have two sons. One is living in California, near Sacramento. They both have families, and the other one lives close by here. And as I mentioned to you, one feels more American, the other one feels more Mexican. So that's the way it worked out.
Yeah.
So so then I'm here. So I've been living more than 40 years in Mexico. Lived 30 years in Cancun, and then moved here where we live now in San Miguel de Allende, which is a beautiful colonial town in central Mexico.
Wow, sounds wonderful. It sounds wonderful. So I was reading in your bio that you have a growing or you had a growing interest in Eastern philosophy. So is that what did you spend a lot of time, and which kind? Because there's so many different kinds.
Well,
the Eastern philosophy, because I get from your bio that kind of influenced the direction that you went.
Yes. Yeah, it was in because I ate meat and dairy almost, the first 25 years of my life. And in 1976, I became interested in Oriental philosophies, Eastern philosophy and religion. So I got into Zen and Buddhism.
Right.
And one of the things is that on that side of the world, there's a lot vegetarians. So I decided in 1976, actually we both, my wife and I, we decided in 1976 that we're going to become vegetarians. And that's what we did. And this went on for about over 30 years. And I felt pretty good, except that I did get sick a couple of times a year with flu-like symptoms. I would get congestion and sore throat and fever. And it was every year. It was at least once. And I also had, which I had like most of my life, I got arrhythmias, sometimes it really scared me. And,
I bet.
And sometimes it got worse. I would sometimes, many, many times during the day. So I didn't know what was going on. And that was, worrying me. And my brother, who was living in New York, he still is living in New York. He was telling me that maybe, I would feel better and I'd be able to get over these, these issues, these health issues, if I gave up dairy, because I was a vegetarian.
Okay.
But for me, it was so hard, just thinking about it, because I just love the cheese, the pizza, and I know that for a lot of people, it's harder to give up dairy than it is even meat. So I wasn't going to, I said, well, I don't know, I'll think about it. But then he told me to read the book, The China Study, which was by Dr. T. Colin Campbell. And I read it, and it just made me see clearly why it was worth giving it a try to give up dairy. And I did. So, and that was 14 years ago. So, my wife and I, and even my son and their families are basically eating whole plant-based foods. And it's important to, just to, stress that, you can be a vegan and still not eat very well. You could eat, you can live on potato chips and Coca-Cola and donuts.
And cake.
And cake, and you're a vegan.
And whatever.
It's not much better than
No.
eating anything, especially you start eating a lot of the highly processed, junk foods.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was, I wanted to mention that. So this that was 14 years ago, and for me, doing that was very important, because I started all those issues I had just completely went away. And and that was proof that, was working for me. So, but what, that was for myself. But what made things turn around for me and make it important for me to really, talk, wanted to give this information to other people was this an incident that happened while we were living in Cancun. And no, it wasn't. We were living here, but this friend of ours was living on the island of Cozumel, which is off of, in the Caribbean, and a very good friend of ours. And she suffered a heart attack, and then she went to a hospital in Merida, which is on the Yucatan Peninsula, and she had quadruple bypass heart surgery.
Oh my God!
And she was in such bad shape. She even had a heart attack while she had the surgery.
Oh my God!
She had an enlarged heart, and well, anyway, she went through it, and it was successful surgery. And they told her, okay, go home, and she went home. A year later, she started feeling pain in her, I guess it was her right arm. And the doctors told her that she had to come back to the hospital to get checked out. She went back, and they wanted to put, because she was her artery, well, the one that replaced the vein that was now connected to her heart was too narrow for the stent, because they wanted to put a stent in.
Yeah.
And they said they couldn't do it. And they told her there was nothing they could do, and they sent her home.
God.
And they told her that she shouldn't exert herself or do exercises or climb stairs, even though her bedroom was on the second floor. What they didn't tell her, though, was that, and they told this to my wife, and they told this also to her son, that she had about 6 months to live.
Oh my God!
And they never told her that. And I had already started the plant-based diet, and I had been reading on it, and how there were doctors who were having success in turning around heart problems with diet. And I told her about it, and I actually recommended the book by Caldwell Esselstyn, How to Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease, which was actually the book that President Clinton read, that put him on a plant-based diet.
Okay.
So anyway, she read it, and she said okay, and she decided that she was gonna make the jump and do it. So instead of living 6 months, she lived close to 9 years.
Wow.
And this to me was amazing, because how is it possible? I know that doctors, the immediate thing is bypass surgery, and then you eventually put the stents in, but they don't talk about this. How is it possible that they don't suggest this option? And I know one of the reasons is they never really were trained to do that.
That's right. No one told them. It's one of those, well, no one told them.
Exactly. And, in universities and in medical schools, there's very, very little nutrition being taught.
Yes,
so anyway, this had a big impact on me. And then I started thinking, well, if this is true about heart disease and diet, what about other chronic diseases? And it comes out there's been a lot of success with type 2 diabetes, with obesity, with the high blood pressure, so I just saw, and it really a light went off, that this is a difficult situation.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I know just for myself that many years ago, oh my God, I don't even remember, 20 years ago, I was just so tired all the time, and I just felt horrible. And I actually went to an allergist because my whole family has allergies. So I was like, okay, that's the first place I went to. And he did a, what's it called? A challenge diet. Are you familiar with that?
No, I am not.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Challenge diet is where you try and figure out what you're allergic to. So you start out eating about 3 items, and then you add one at a time for a couple of days.
Okay. I know what that is.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And so I did that, and it turned out I was allergic to cow's milk. and to wheat. And as soon as I stopped eating both of those, I felt fine. And my allergist, bless his heart, said to me, there's nothing else I can do for you. I'm not giving you shots or any of that kind of stuff. Just stop eating it and have a good life.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. No, it's just, that was like the luckiest thing in my life, I think, because my mother had used to go in for shots every week, and a couple of my brothers, and, and I was just, and he was like, no, it's not going to help you. You just need to stop eating them.
And a lot of people are lactose intolerant that they don't even know. So they suffer and they have a bloating, stomach and problems with it, but they don't realize it, that, they're missing the enzyme they need to digest. Right.
Yes. Oh, no, exactly. But I was actually allergic to it. I have a lot of other symptoms when I eat, because every once in a while I cheat and I'll have some regular cheese. I'm fine with goat milk. Fine with sheep's milk.
Interesting.
Just can't do, and beef does not agree with me either. So anything from a cow, even organic milk and beef. So, what can I say? It's easy now.
Yeah, once you make the decision, it's easy.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. So, so I mean, as I say, I don't, other than cheese, occasionally I have some chicken, but and fish. I like fish, salmon.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, if I was really good, I'd give all that up too, but I'm not, so I don't. But enough about me. Okay, let's get back to talking about you. So you became a vegan, and your wife became a vegan, and your kids and your grandkids are all vegan.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And life is good.
Yeah. I just, look, I'm 80 years old. Yeah. And to me, it's very important as people, they start getting older, that you really want to enjoy your later years. And I'm in my later years, and yet I don't feel like I'm in my later years. I feel I think as healthy as I ever been. Considering my age, I just, I don't have any chronic diseases, and everybody has some issues here and there, and you just have to pay attention. But I really trust my body. I think it's really important that we take on the responsibility of our own health. Mm-hmm. And that's not trust them, sometimes it's important you go to see a doctor for, whatever problem you have. But I think more and more we need to take control of our own body, because, the doctors, I mean, this is the way I see it. Mm-hmm. Doctors, their number one, their go-to remedy is our drugs, pharmaceutical drugs. Oh, and that's, and that's why, and that's why, especially the U.S., we're in a drug society, and, people on there, losing weight and antidepressants. It's terrible. And that's the way we've become, over the years, when the pharmaceutical industry just became a multi-billion-dollar industry. And it's interesting because there are only 2 countries that allow pharmaceutical products to be advertised on TV: in the United States and New Zealand.
Really? New Zealand?
Really?
That's surprising.
That's surprising.
That's very surprising. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Here in Mexico, where we live, it doesn't happen. So here you have it. They try to sell you. You watch TV and they're selling you the junk food to make you sick. And then the drugs are advertised to make you better. And then you get the side effects of so many drugs. And then you have to take another drug for the side effects. So for me, it's been like, no, we really have to take responsibility and pay attention to our own bodies. And for me, it's, our body is, to me, the greatest gift. I think the greatest gift, I don't even know if you can doubt it, is the gift of life, which without the gift of life, there would be nothing. So, and then I'm saying, okay, well, if the gift of life is the greatest gift, what about the body? And I'm just thinking, I thought, about it and say, the body, without the body, where would life live?
There wouldn't be any.
There wouldn't be any. It's inside of us. And then it goes back to the, so that means that if we really see the preciousness of life and take, really want to enjoy it, then we need to, or I hope we see the value of taking care of the place that houses the life. And that's the way I've always looked at it. So to me, it's like, I want to live as long as I can.
Yeah.
I don't know how long, it'll be great to live to 100, but I don't know how long I'm going to live. But for as long as I live, I want to be as healthy as I can, because there's so much to enjoy once you, it's so much to enjoy. And then the opportunity to, that's another thing about getting older is that maybe the physical attributes, start leaving and you can't do the same things, but we have something that you don't have when you're younger. And that is wisdom, the wisdom of experiences, the wisdom of understanding and of knowing, a lot of things that you don't have that, because as a young person, you haven't reached the age of being older. So, and the problem is that in Western societies, in the U.S., once you get older, you start getting older. Oh, you're over the hill. You're not worth anything, and you start believing that. And then people, you put, go to homes or whatever. But there's something we can really enjoy these later years and tap into, some of the wisdom we have, things we've maybe, enjoyed all our life. And now maybe we're not working as much. We don't have to work. So now we can enjoy some of the gifts we have. And once you do that, and that's what I've done. I started writing. I used to write when I was young. I used to write poetry. And now I'm writing, I wrote my book. I finished my ebook, and I'm doing the podcasts with a lot of enjoyment and and passion. And so we can all do that. But it's very important. We got to be healthy because you don't want to end up, it's like by the time you reach 70, unfortunately, people on a, standard American diet where it's, big focus on, fat and meat and not, not focusing on plant foods. And then you end up with the standard American diet, and the standard American diet, which is based on meat and dairy and, and fatty
sugar.
foods, and also sugars and, just
not to mention the
highly
chemicals.
processed foods. And then you end up at the end of 70% of the people who are in their 70s have already a chronic disease, and then that starts it all off. And you know what they say though? Some people say, I guess maybe doctors too, oh, chronic disease, it's just a natural part of aging. I mean, you have to die of something.
Yes, exactly. And the latter part is true, but that doesn't mean you have to die from one of those things.
Exactly. There's something you can do about it. Yeah.
That's like, okay, fine. If I just wear it out, not a problem,
Yeah. And you just, you take care of yourself and so you could really enjoy, later life. And that's what, that's what's so important. And then when you're really enjoying it, then all of a sudden it's, the years don't matter that much. And I feel even proud sometimes to say how, because I know I'm enjoying, I'm looking good and I'm feeling energy. And I don't mind saying, oh, yeah, I'm 80 years old. And most people are surprised that, I have this energy and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. But and I'm just enjoying doing the podcast and just, educating or informing people on what what's helped me.
Yeah. No, I I totally agree. I mean, that's why I've been doing this podcast for, 3.5 years.
Wow. 3.5
Just,
years. Wow. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah. Well, and it's so interesting. It's so interesting, getting to meet people like you and other people who are in some, maybe just one kind of a specialty or something, or they're doing, they've come up with something else, or, there's just so many different people doing so many different things. And I just love talking to people and hearing their stories and learning from what they're doing in their
Mm-hmm.
lives. I mean, myself, I'm 67, so I mean, I'm getting to the point where people are starting, just like you were saying, oh well, you've made it so far, and da 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 da. And it's like, no. Thank you very much. I plan on being around for a while. Thank you.
Right.
Assuming the earth doesn't blow up or something, that's a whole out of my control. So,
Yeah. Or sometimes they say, if you go to a doctor and they'll say, oh, that's okay. It's okay. It's your age.
Right.
So
yes.
Yeah, accept it. And it's like, no, I'm not going to accept. I'm going to see if I can get rid of this, whatever I don't want.
Yeah.
And if I can't, I can't. But I'm going to look for different options,
Oh, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I get any issues that I have are just little things, like I went for too long of a walk, or, things like that, or my shoes started to hurt, It's, I'm like you. I have no medications or anything, I take a lot of vitamins, but that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah. No, definitely. So, yeah. So we have a little bit of time left. Why don't we talk about, there was something else on here that I thought, well, number one, why don't we talk a little bit about your first book? Cause that kind of goes along with what we've been talking about, right? You're vegan.
Okay. So can I show the book then?
Yes, please.
Okay. This is the book. You see it okay?
Yep. The Thriving Vegan. Hold it just up a little bit. We can see it, but just there you go. Okay.
Okay. So I wrote
Good
this
deal.
book. I wrote this book in 2019. That was, I guess it was about a half a year before the pandemic hit. And it's called The Thriving Vegan, How to Discover the Foods Your Body Loves. And I get into a lot of different topics. I think it's an easy to read book. It has a lot of pictures in there, and I really enjoyed doing it. And now I'm actually working on I'm trying to get another book finished by the end of the year.
Oh, okay.
And then I did my ebook, which I'd like to offer anyone who is interested. Who's listening, your podcast audience. All they would have to do is send me an email. I don't know. Should I give you my email?
I'm sure you can do that. Otherwise, I'll put it. I think you gave it to me, and I'll put it in the show notes if people want to get in touch with you.
Okay, anyone. So it's a 46-page ebook, and I finished it recently. And I get, into the different topics, and I actually go back, which is very interesting. I go back and I talk about how did us becoming a pharmaceutical drug society begin? And it goes back in the end of the 19th century. And I don't even know how many people know about it, but it was before the 1900s. It was most of the treatments and the medicine was holistic. We had homeopathy, naturopathy, osteopathy, acupuncture, Chinese medicine, indigenous herbal medicines, and that's what the universities were. The medical schools, that's what they taught, and that was accepted because there were no drugs.
Right.
The only ones were the herbal medicines, but there was no laboratory produced drugs. So what happened at the end of it started out at the end of the 20th century We all know of Louis Pasteur. Louis
Mm-hmm.
Pasteur, well, he was one behind pasteurization, and he did create vaccines for anthrax and rabies. And so he also wrote the book on germ theory.
Okay.
And that most of the sicknesses that we get is from germs.
Right.
And at the same time as he lived, there was a friend of his who was Antoine Béchamp.
Mm-hmm.
And Antoine Béchamp, he came up around the same time with the terrain theory of disease. And I don't know if you're familiar, but the terrain theory of disease is like, and he gave an example of it, like if you have a garbage dump and there's flies all around the garbage dump, and that's what they do. So you have the flies, and you say, well, I'm going to get rid of the flies. So you take a can of Raid or whatever the insecticide is, and you spray it, and you kill the flies. And that's that's the way it works. But when you leave and you come back, the flies are back again.
Yep.
So you have to spray, and you have to keep spraying. And he said, there's another way. The option is get rid of the garbage.
Yeah.
And then you won't have any more flies. And that was the whole basis of taking care of your own body, of being healthy. So if you are healthy, your body will be able to, your immune system will be able to deal with the germs and the flies or the pathogens. So what happened is, the question is, have you ever heard of Antoine Béchamp? Nobody's heard of it.
Actually, I have heard the name. I didn't know anything about him, but yeah, I have heard the name.
So they accepted the germ theory of disease, and then at the beginning of the 20th century is when the oil, Rockefeller. I don't know if you heard this. Rockefeller was he was the oil magnate, of course, with Standard Oil. But then they found out that you can create pharmaceutical drugs they're called petrochemicals out of oil, and that started the drug. And what they did is that there was a big competition, and he got together with Andrew Carnegie, who was the steel magnate, and they together they had all the money in the world, of course, they saw this potential in drugs. And they started putting down the holistic medicine that was used before, and donating money and creating universities that would only teach what they wanted you to teach. And that was the end of at that time in the 19th century, it was alternative medicine was the medicine. And then once the drugs came in and the pharmaceutical drugs came in, then the alternative medicine was pushed into the background, and they were even threatened, if they continued, and they weren't funded. And then universities came, and they just continued. And that's where we got to the point where the pharmaceutical industry became one of the most powerful industries in the world.
Oh yeah. I was going to say, I'm sure it's competing for the most powerful. Probably with some other companies that were not
with the
interested
oil
in
companies
either.
or whatever.
Yeah, and the armament companies.
Yeah, for sure. So it's an interesting story, but how we became where we are. But I think it's time to, things aren't getting better in the in the U.S. It's like we're not a healthy country.
We're not.
Look at what's happening. Type 2 diabetes was it was originally called adult onset diabetes. You never heard of a child getting diabetes. Now they changed the name to type 2 diabetes, and it's kids, young kids, toddlers are getting already symptoms. So we got to do something about it. And I think it is. We have to. My opinion is we need to start taking our health into our own hands and maybe become our own doctors, in a way, not, not in the degrees, but there's things that, we need to do. And,
and our diets, our food. I mean, that's the best place to start, because there's so much of it is grown with all these chemicals.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, if you just, even if you don't go vegan, if you at least go organic, then
Right.
you're cleaning up at least half of your diet right then and there, and then you
And
can
now
work on.
there's a big movement to grow your own. We have a beautiful garden in our backyard, which my wife takes care of more than I do. But we're planting lettuce and tomatoes and kale and all kinds of chard, and so we're starting to eat more and more out of that, and we know that that's organic, because we're doing it ourselves.
That's right.
So the thing is to try, to do that, and also to live a life where you have, it's lifestyle, getting out and exercising and also dealing with the mind and the heart, and either through meditation, because stress is so intense right now, what's happening around the world, and we have to learn to deal with it, and that's really important to be healthy.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, being healthy is the base of dealing with stress, because if your body's reacting to what you're eating, then you're not going to be able to handle anything else that comes up. Yeah. No, I totally agree. Yeah, I buy most of our fruits and vegetables and all of that from a farmer's market that's just, twice a week down the street.
Right.
So
that's good.
Yeah. Well, I'm lucky in that way. I live in an area that is very health oriented, very organic oriented. There's a lot of support for all of that, even a lot of restaurants that are all organic. So, yeah.
Yeah. And, another thing I wanted to mention is really, I think that it's important that, most people who go on diets, they go on diets to lose weight. That's like the big thing. It's been the big thing for decades, but it's really got to change, because we need to go on diets, not, for our health, because what happens if you just go to lose weight, if you go to Wikipedia, you'll find a list of over 100 different diets there, because people go from one diet to another because it's not sustainable. So they'll lose weight. They'll go on the Atkins diet or the South Beach diet or, whatever, and they'll go on it. They'll lose the weight in, a month, and then they go back to the weight because it's hard to sustain it, because their diets, if their diets are not healthy, they can't be sustained, because your body requires nutrition. And, so for me,
real calories. Yeah.
Yeah. Real calories. For me, that's why eating more plants, substituting more plants for, animal-based foods is going to give you better nutrition. And, maybe you don't go full, plant-based, but if you can just change a little bit, you'll start feeling, better. And also, which we don't have time to get into, is how it affects our,
climate change,
and what we're doing to the planet, the climate
Absolutely.
change. But that's another thing.
Yeah.
It does.
No, that's even more depressing. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, I think in what you're saying is that what people don't understand is that if you start eating for your health, you will lose weight.
Exactly. I'm
Guaranteed.
glad you mentioned it.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, and sustainable.
Yes.
Because you want to be healthy, so you're going to continue.
That's right.
To want to be healthy, and
you're
going to
feel better. You're going to look better. It's just it's
right.
It's just so obvious, but a lot of people don't see it.
Well, one by one, it's like if your listeners here, if one person says, "Hey, you know what? Maybe it's worth it." One by one, you can't, you can't expect much, but each person that changes is a person that's going to, is going to be healthier.
I agree. I totally agree. Yeah. So that sounds like a good place to kind of wrap this up. Do you want to show your book one more time? And again, I'll put an Amazon link in there you go. The Thriving Vegan. Okay. Move it towards your, that way, I guess.
My
towards your left, I think.
My left?
Towards your left. There you go. Okay. Perfect. Good. The Thriving Vegan.
Okay. And also I just wanted to mention for my ebook that My ebook is the nutrition, lifestyle, and COVID connection. So I include I talk about this history of drugs and other things, the importance of having, living in harmony with the planet and ourselves. I get into the microbiome, which is an extremely incredible topic. So if anybody was interested, they could just send me their email.
Yes.
Or send me, reply to send me an email.
Send you an email. Yes.
Right.
Yes. Expressing their interest in it.
Right.
And I will put the name and the email address in the show notes for them. So it'll be an easy place to find it.
Okay.
And so let me wrap this up as I usually do, which is that neither of us are medical professionals, and this is not to be seen as medical advice, although it will help you, but that's a whole nother issue. And if you are having any sort of medical problems, please talk to whoever your doctor is. And if it's an emergency, go to the emergency room. They are good for that. So with that being said, thank you, Michael, for coming on. It's been a real pleasure, and I've really enjoyed talking with you.
Well, thank you, Susan. And I enjoyed doing it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I will say, as I usually do, that I will be talking to everybody next week.
This has been Healthy Tips After 50 with Susan Rosen. To stay on the cutting edge of the most effective health strategies, subscribe to this podcast and let us know what you thought of the show with a comment or like on iTunes. Visit healthytipsafter50.com for this episode's show notes, more resources, and free offers.